Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5, the heart of the city here in Birmingham. Welcome also to our Luton listeners tuned in on 105.1. Hope you're having lovely fine weather down there. We're experiencing a beautiful summer this year, mashallah. It is lovely having that lovely weather, lovely time for children, lovely time for babies to blossom and grow as we move into today's show, which is a really inspirational show we're having today. A hot topic that we all need to talk about and discuss, and I know something a lot of our listeners are very eager to support, and it's about breastfeeding. So today on Parenting Hour, we're going to spend this whole hour dedicated to Breastfeeding Week, which is this week, but not just focusing on breastfeeding, talking about infant feeding in as per se, so the different kinds of feeding and how to support mums and how to help babies to nourish and grow as they do, mashallah. So my name is Kathleen Roche-Nagi, and I'm with you for the next hour in the studio. This show is going out with you. It's been pre-recorded, but if you do have a question, you can ring the studio manager on 0121 772 8892 or email studio@unityfm.net. We hope very soon in the future to do a live show on this topic where you can ring in live and take part in the chat, because there's been a lot of talk this week about breastfeeding and being Breastfeeding Week and the importance of that and how to get the message out. And we know a lot of people on social media have been really having those conversations and want to know more and want to know where they can get the support and who's there for them. And we have three lovely guests here in the studio today who are going to describe all of this and talk about this to you. So I will welcome them individually first, and then they can introduce themselves. So we have Sharon. Welcome to the studio.
Hi Kathy.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming in. We have Sandra. Thank you for coming in.
Hi Kathy. Thanks for inviting us.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And we have Karoline.
Hi, it's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here and giving up your time. Very busy professionals, and we will talk more about what you do actually in your roles. But first, maybe can we start with why we're doing this today? Because we are doing this today because it's Breastfeeding Week, is that right?
Yeah, it's World Breastfeeding Week. Obviously, it's got a global agenda, but we felt it was really important to be here because of all the hard work that we've done across our city of Birmingham in doing training for health professionals for health visiting, and also my colleague does training for peer support workers, which you'll explain a bit later on. So we thought it was important just to pass that message along, how important breastfeeding is, but really how important it is to support mums regardless of how they're going to feed.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder, why is there a need for a week like this to do it? Because breastfeeding, you know, we've been getting out the message there for years, or have we not been getting out the messages there? Are still people confused about breastfeeding and how it is good for babies, do you think?
I think there's a lot of awareness around the benefits of breastfeeding, but not necessarily all the tips of how to do it successfully and how to get things off to a good start. So really it's to celebrate all the mums that have tried breastfeeding and make sure that we improve the journey really for anybody in the future.
Brilliant. That's really good. And are you having an active role this week then? You must be very busy, as well as doing radio shows. You must be going to lots of events and promoting this, so you must be really busy apart from your other work.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's been a really busy week, but breastfeeding isn't just about this week. It's every single day, isn't it? Babies are being fed 24 hours a day all over the world, so it's an important message every single day. I think the thing about promoting it in one single week is just to raise the agenda and to get people talking, which is what's happening, isn't it?
We're having lots of conversations talking, actually. There's been lots of talks on Twitter and on Facebook around that, which we'll come to in a bit about those conversations. But we'll talk, if we can just talk to parents or break it down a little bit for parents of why breast is best.
Yeah, so World Breastfeeding Week for me is more of a celebration really of breastfeeding and the support that we give in the city. So my role is to train local mums in the area to become volunteer peer supporters. And as you know, Kathy, there's already some in the area and they're active and they're doing a great role. And you've already told me about the wonderful work that they've done. So it is for me a celebration of the work that them ladies have already done and what they're going to be doing in the future. So ideally we'd like more peer support across Birmingham so that more mums can get that support with breastfeeding. So World Breastfeeding Week is a real opportunity to get that message out there and tell mums how they can support, where they can get the support, how they can get the training, etc. So that's what World Breastfeeding Week is for me.
Great. So you see lots of noddings going on. So it's World Week. So it's not just UK focused or or Birmingham focused. We're trying to get the world, every city, every country in the world more aware of breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And in some countries, I suppose, historically, it's been more natural than in other countries for doing something like this. Well, there's maybe no alternatives.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's kind of a natural process that happens. As you said, it's natural anyway.
Yeah.
And if there's no alternatives, then people breastfeed their babies, and they probably have extended families that can give that support there. So with life changing and busy lifestyles of people now, we don't always have that support. So this is where you come on in and you train up people like our sparklers or breastfeeding buddies to help others.
That's exactly what you said, Kathy.
Yeah.
So, if you were living in a village or rural area, maybe in another country, then, they would have aunties, sisters, cousins, friends, all would be there. You'd see mums breastfeeding all the time, and it would be, quite a natural thing that you do it because you see it and you've got the support there. Unfortunately, not so much in this country, and certainly in Birmingham. That's why these mums need that support, and often it's just to say to that mum, do you know what, you're doing great, you're doing fine. So it's not always that there's a huge problem and they have to get over this huge problem. Sometimes it can be, but often it's just to say to that mum, you're doing great, that's absolutely perfect, that's absolutely normal, that's how a breastfed baby would feed, and it's just reassuring that mum. And also it's for her to know that she can go somewhere where she can breastfeed her baby, and she's not going to be judged, and she's not going to get comments like the baby's constantly on the breast, or your baby is 18 months and you're still breastfeeding, why don't you give a bottle? She can go to the groups, the support groups, and just sit there and feel very comfortable with people, like-minded people, and feed her baby.
Great. That's wonderful what is happening. And I know some of the feedback we've had from parents that have had that support, those sparklers or her breastfeeding support, is because they link it to the faith elements, and they're able to give them at their low web just a reminder of what our faith tells them about breastfeeding and the rewards they're getting and how to continue doing it. And they said, this really is just, we know it already, but at that low point, we just need to hear that again to really get us going again, to think, yes, it's fine, I'm doing okay, and I will continue.
And often it's just to hear that, mum say, do you know what, I had that problem, or I come across that issue when I was breastfeeding my children, and I found this helped, or I found that helped, So it's sharing them experiences and knowing, gosh, I'm not on my own. Other women have gone through this, and they've got the support, and they've got the help, and they've come through it. Yeah,
I think motherhood's such a massive journey you go on. It's what you expect is never what the reality is, and you need that support from professionals, but also from your peers, because it means so much to hear somebody else has experienced something similar, and to take that support that's offered there. It takes you down a path that you can see light at the end of the tunnel if you're struggling a little bit, but in reality something that's very natural is still a learnt skill. It's not something that everybody just knows instinctively how to do. So we do provide that step-by-step bits of information that allows that mum to get it off to a good start in a way that it's comfortable. She can enjoy it, baby enjoys the time, it's not rushed, it's not timed. Mum and baby just learn together at their own pace and gets the support on how the baby's thriving from that, really.
Brilliant. So it's very individual. Then you were saying that maybe mum might not know what to do, baby may not know what they're doing as well in the very beginning, or baby might have had a difficult time coming into the world and still a bit dazed over all of this.
They need time to adapt, don't they? They need time to sort of get to know each other. It's really important, protected time, really, we should give to families in those early days. But recognising that we all have a part to play in society to support mums. There's a saying, isn't there, that the village raises a child.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah, and I think we've forgotten that over time,
Yeah.
and people feel very lonely sometimes in those early days. So we need to look at the support that can be offered across the board, really, not just health professionals, but looking at different ways of offering that support and what works for the local communities. And that's our role, really, to explore that more as time develops. We're in a period of change at the moment with Birmingham Forward Steps launching, and so it's an opportunity as well to look at what more can be done.
I think was really lovely when I came and trained the mums locally, because like Karoline said, you know, the support we give, it isn't one size fits all. So different areas would have different support, in as much as maybe a group doesn't support a support group doesn't suit some areas. So when I came and done the training in this area and the local mums, that was really brilliant, because they knew the local mums, they knew the local area, they knew what would work and what wouldn't work. So not only am I going out and training, or we're going out and training, but we're learning as well. We're learning, you know, like Karoline said, you know,
it's true.
Different cultures, what works and what doesn't work. We're not going to come in and tell you guys what's going to work in your culture. We're going to listen to what you're saying.
Well, we're going to explore actually setting up a service now after the holidays, after summer holidays, because we have very success stories by giving the individual support, and we do it over WhatsApp. And that is, we're available, our sparklers are available in the evening, night time, when people are maybe not outside office hours, and it's often those phone call, as you say, and because it's over WhatsApp, it's free phone call as well, which is really good. And or maybe sometimes messages even as well, so sending some messages that they can read, especially if there's ayahs of Quran, that can happen. But we want to explore having the support group of people where they can meet other people that are in similar stages, because we know from delivering our pregnancy and beyond pregnancy courses that people like coming together and then like moving on together and making friendships and getting to know each other and kind of discussing milestones and discussing maybe those nappies, that seedy nappy. Is that right or is that wrong? Maybe don't want to ask a professional over because feel a bit silly asking about that, but discussing with each other, is your baby having that kind of nappy as well, and they see this is normal to have it a seedy nappy when you're breastfeeding, things, little things like this. So we're wanting to put on those support groups where parents can drop in and see how that goes. And if it's something that parents like, then see how we can continue that. And having our breastfeeding support buddies kind of champion those roles. So that's something new, listeners. If you're tuned in and you want to find out more information about that, do contact Approachable Parenting, and we're going to be starting that from September, inshallah, where we'll have a day a week for you and your baby to come in, your toddler to come in and chat to each other and eat and have a nice time and maybe have some conversations and little things. And we could, from that then, if you needed more education about different things or more knowledge about different things, or meet some other people, we can bring in those guest speakers in and have them talking to you about whatever it is you want. So this is great. That it's lovely to see how you adopt your training to meet community needs, because there's other communities that probably have different needs than what our communities
I think that's the unique thing about the city, about Birmingham itself. It is just so diverse, and as Sandra said, one size doesn't fit all, and you can't do the same thing across the whole patch. It's got to be really individualised in all the districts that we cover, and really individualised for each family whose door you walk into. So yeah, definitely.
And we are moving our training, even with the health professionals, to district approach and how we train. So the children's centre staff and the health professionals will be coming together on their training, so that we all get to know the local communities much better, and the training can be tailored then to those needs.
Brilliant, which is really good indeed. Lovely listeners. I know you're really doing a lot of work in Birmingham, and especially with the new Birmingham Forward Steps, and we're all coming together. In your experience, you've been doing this now for a long time, many years, so you've lots of experience here in front of me. Wow. What are the main reasons you think that put people off breastfeeding?
I think for some women it's confidence. They're not sure if they can produce enough milk to feed their baby. They're worried whether their baby's going to grow and thrive. We always sort of notice when people are pregnant, they're really confident in their ability to grow their baby. They worry the baby's going to grow too big, and they're actually scared about that. But as soon as the baby's born, there's a real fear that what if I don't produce enough for my baby? What if my baby's not growing quickly enough and losing weight? So a lot of it's about building knowledge and confidence around breastfeeding, so that they feel they do have the tools to breastfeed and understand how our bodies make breast milk, so that it makes more sense. I think there's a bit of a mystery out there of how it all happens, and so they think, well, can I do this? But in fact, the very vast majority of women will be able to produce enough breast milk if they're given the right information at the right time to be able to get it off to a good start.
Our bodies are wonderful, aren't they?
They
That
are
how
amazing.
this is produced naturally. We don't actually have to tell our breast to produce milk, or what kind of milk, or am I thirsty, or am I hungry, or it just happens so naturally in responding to this. It's unbelievable, actually. What a miracle.
Yeah.
Imagine if we had to sit down every morning as mothers and say, I have to make a list now for how my body produces milk. We'd be exhausted.
And that simple closeness between mum and baby is key to it all. That close cuddles, responding to the baby's needs and picking that baby up when they're showing early signs of hunger, rather than waiting for a baby to cry, but keeping that baby close whenever they need that comfort and support. And the baby will naturally then start to lead the way. They'll show their rooting reflexes, they'll show they're interested in breast milk, and they'll work together to learn how to do that.
I think it's important for mums to know that breastfeeding isn't just about giving your baby food or a meal, and because we talk about breastfeeding, giving your baby milk, but the actual act of breastfeeding is a lot more than that. It's all about the brain development for that baby as well. And like Karoline said, building that loving relationship with your baby. Yes, you can have a loving relationship with your baby, whether they're breastfed or not, but the brain development, when you're breastfeeding your baby, that's often missed out, isn't it? When they say, oh, I can give a bottle and I can give formula, but you're going to get so much for your baby if you breastfeed that baby.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important, as Karoline mentioned earlier, about getting the information right. And the information's there. You've got your health professionals, you've got your midwives, you've got your health visitors, but there's so much support antenatally within children's centres, through forums, different websites, on the Off to the Best Start leaflet, Start for Life campaign. There's lots of apps like the Baby Buddy app, which is the Best Beginnings one. There's so much information available, but very often families don't know about it, they don't know how to access it. So we will leave some information at the end of this session so that you have it for parents that phone in. But a lot of the information antenatally needs to be one-to-one. If a mum's not sure, she needs time to sit with somebody. It doesn't have to be a health professional. It can be a peer support worker in a group, it can be a volunteer, one of your sparklers locally that can just sit and spend time and just talk through some of the issues. It's not about reeling off a list of the benefits of breastfeeding to a mum, and this is where some mums get confused or may feel coerced into their being bullied into feeding. Our role, or what's happening now, is not about bullying mums into feeding. It's about giving information so that they can make an informed choice on what decisions they want to make with how they're going to feed. We make that decision every day, whether we're buying a new car or looking at what pram to get or what sleep suit to get for the baby or what brand of nappy to buy. So it's about really looking at the information that's given around breastfeeding and how it can really work for a mum and baby and the whole family. And then looking at the reverse side of that. And working with what suits best for them.
Isn't that great that we're giving mothers choices here? And that's really important, because we know ourselves, if we have a choice and make a decision ourselves, we're more likely to continue with that decision, because we've decided we want to do this. So it's great giving mothers choices and giving them the information. I love the way you mentioned Best Beginnings, because actually we're working with Best Beginnings. We've had them on the show numerous of times, and we've done, Alison have done a lot of shows with us, as well as I visited them in London. We're going to kind of pilot how our partnership working is going to progress over the next few months and years, hopefully, because they have so many videos there. So what we're doing at the moment as part of our progress, we've always advertised Best Beginning app, but we're actually now, our sparklers are coaching mums to download the app, and not just that, but going back to them and then asking them, how did you find it useful? Did you manage to look at those 32 videos on breastfeeding, for example? What did you think of them? What comments have you got? Were they useful to you?
Absolutely ideal. That's brilliant, because yes, she says to mum, there's the app or the leaflet or whatever, but she needs that support with that, so that's wonderful, that work you're doing, it's marvellous.
And it's all individual again, because we all learn differently, don't we? Some mums are happy sitting and reading a leaflet or looking at a book to read and get the information. But a lot of us actually need to see things visually, and I learn better by actually seeing and doing. And I think looking at those videos, they're so informative and reassuring. It definitely will help parents in their decision making, and actually help them when they're feeding as well. So it could be like 2:00 in the morning and mum's not sure about where the baby's attached. She can just zap onto the Baby Buddy app, have a look through at the video clips, and everything's sorted for
wonderful. It's wonderful resources. And actually also your training, which is a lovely training, in that sometimes for visual parents, they might think, oh, the baby's not drinking at night because I don't feel anything moving, and I don't feel my breast filling up or emptying out, and maybe there's nothing going with the baby. But just to know the size of actually the baby's stomach,
the belly balls,
and the balls, and how you measure which balls, really brings it to life of actually how small that little stomach is in the beginning.
It's really good visual aid, isn't it? That really helps mums realise.
So maybe you can explain it a little bit for our listeners, because they mightn't have heard or seen the balls before.
Yeah, so on the training, or the peer supporters, the trainers, were given, we call them belly balls, and it's 3 small balls, 3 different sizes. I can't remember the measurements of the
teaspoon for a newborn.
The first ball is like a very small marble. If you imagine your children playing with marbles, those really small marbles, that's the baby's stomach size when they're born in those first early days. And then it moves on to a slightly bigger marble, and then by the time the baby's 2 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks. So by the time the baby's 2 to 3 weeks old, it's more the size of a ping pong ball, if you can imagine that sort of size. But we're still talking small sizes. That baby needs little and often. That's how they're naturally developed, to feed little and often. And that if you fill that tummy too much, then what do we see? We see babies bringing up milk, don't we? And then we think, oh no, they've been sick, we'll give them some more. And actually, no, the baby brought up that bit of milk because they couldn't keep it all in. Their tummy was just a bit too small to hold that volume. So a lot of it is re-educating our expectations of the amount a baby feeds. And actually, we are designed to feed little and often, not large volumes and then sleep for hours. That's not how we've evolved. That's not how we've evolved over the years. We do need to be close to our families. We're not designed to be out in a little crib somewhere in another room for hours. We need our feed often, and we need that closeness and reassurance and security. And that's for breastfeeding, how breastfeeding works, because that closeness helps that mum make the milk as well. So it all ties in together. But even formula fed babies, they still need that responsive feeding as well. Their tummies are the same size. They still need little and often. I think we've just got a little bit more to go on the education around safe formula feeding as well, haven't we, in the city?
There's I was just thinking about what Karoline was saying about the small stomach size, and thinking about the colostrum, the first milk that babies have. And colostrum, as we know, is in very, very small amounts, really rich and really full of antibiotics and real natural protective properties for babies.
Sharon,
And
did you want to explain what colostrum is in case the listeners?
very small amounts. It's like liquid gold, really, and very, very rich, full of antibacterial properties, and it's like a natural immunity shot, really, for a baby every time they feed. So it really is rich and concentrated, and it really sort of helps to settle them, make them feel sort of, at one with their moms when they have that really first early feeds that they have when they're first born. And colostrum's present really for probably about a week, maybe a bit longer than that. It never really disappears as the milk starts to mature and develop and starts to get into full breastfeeding milk. But colostrum is one not to forget, because of the protective factors for it. I know in the past, when I worked as a midwife, probably over 10 years ago, probably 20 years ago, some mums never used to give colostrum because they thought it was dirty milk. Actually, it's so valuable to give. It's really precious stuff. And you'll find that mums that have babies early, that have premature babies, the nurses in the neonatal units and the midwives will get mums to express that valuable milk off, because that's what keeps those pregnant babies going, the colostrum. So it's so important that mums do offer feeds early, as Karoline and Sandra both said, having that closeness with baby and having that connection so the baby's not too far away, and you sort of meeting those needs, working in response to your baby's needs and to your needs to offer milk as much as possible. You can't put a time on breastfeeding at all, you know. And Sandra said breastfeeding isn't about just giving milk, it's about comfort, it's about learning about the baby that, you know, that mum's carried for 9 months inside her womb, letting it grow naturally. So what she's doing is carrying on with that natural, normal thing around breastfeeding and parenting. Every single day she's learning something different from her experience.
And the mum's body is amazing. Whatever environment mum and baby are in together, her body's making protective substances in her body to pass on to baby, so that when they are together and the baby encounters a germ, the baby's mum has produced the protective factors for whatever that particular germ happens to be, and the next feed it'll be passed on to baby. So keeping mums and babies together enables the body to really produce what that baby needs to keep the baby safe and protected as well. It's not just food, it's actually almost like a medicine in itself. It helps protect the baby so much, so we really underestimate the value of breast milk.
And I think this follows on from what you asked, Kathleen, about why do mums not breastfeed. And I think it's the education and them knowing all these, so the belly balls, the colostrum, the benefits of breastfeeding, not just about the ones we already know, because there's so much pressures on mums to not breastfeed. You know, I hear mum saying, oh, people are saying the baby's always on the breast, the baby's constantly feeding, the baby's using you as a dummy. Why don't you give a bottle? You must be tired. Let me do that. Let me take the baby and give the baby a bottle.
Well, with that in mind, I'm sorry to cut you there, Sandra, because we're coming to a commercial break and we'll come back and talk more about that. You can see the conversation keeps going on here at Unity FM on Parenting Hour. We just have a quick commercial break, and do join us, inshallah, listeners, after this break. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back after that commercial break. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5 here in Birmingham. This is Parenting Hour. My name is Kathleen Roche-Nagi, and we've had a lovely discussion with our 3 guests in front of me about breastfeeding. You may want to ask them a question. If you do so, please ring the studio manager on 0121 772 8892 or email studio@unityfm.net, and we will pass on all queries, all questions, any comments to them, and they can get back to you individually themselves. So before the break there, we were in deep discussion before the break, lots of talking, and we've lots more talking to do. So we're talking a lot about the benefits of breastfeeding and how it's so natural, etc. I just want to throw something out there at you. I've heard of a poor mom one time that was told by an extended family that you're not allowed to breastfeed because you won't be able to do the cooking and the cleaning, and it takes up too much time, and therefore here, to have the bottle is best, it's easier, we can help you in doing that, we can give the bottle while you get on with cooking. What advice, I know we have our breastfeeding sport buddies now, they're trying to give advice, but what advice would you give a family that is listening in that have that opinion?
Babies in those early years are really born a little bit immature. Their brains are still developing, their gut's still developing. So many parts of that baby are still really immature, and they need that protection from their mum in those early days. It might seem like a lot of time's been dedicated to sitting and feeding, but what you were giving those babies in those early days, early weeks, early months, early years is the foundation for life, which is the slogan really for Breastfeeding Week for this year. But if we can invest that time in those early days, weeks, months, years into that baby, we'll get the rewards for the rest of that baby's life. So it's about educating the family to understand those benefits and to understand how it all works and how they can work together as a family to provide the best start for that baby.
Yes, what Karoline was saying is absolutely right, and I hear this a lot from a lot of mums saying that they're under pressure really to give that bottle. Other family members want to help out, which is lovely, but there are other ways that they can help. We encourage mums to do lots of skin to skin with their babies. So for those who are not sure, it's about putting baby on mum's chest, no clothing, but you can do it discreetly, and babies no clothing on top, and that skin to skin, and that can help with the milk production, and it helps to relax baby, it helps to regulate baby's temperature, it helps to release the hormone oxytocin for mum, which is the love hormone, which makes her feel nice and relaxed and looking at a baby, fall in love with a baby. But not just mum can do that, dad can do that. Nan can do that, auntie can do that, siblings can do that. So there are lots of ways that the family can get involved with this baby, except for the breastfeeding. Obviously that's up to mum. But so we don't want to exclude them and say, oh, this is mum's role and nobody else can get involved. Other family members, certainly dads, lots of dads love to do skin to skin with their babies.
And it's maybe a new concept that's coming in, and something that we need to educate dads about as well, their role.
Yeah. I mean, I think skin to skin, it's been around a long time.
And for dads?
But not so much with dads, do you think, maybe?
Especially in our community. When we look at our community, probably our dads they haven't heard about this before, so it's probably new for them, but it's something that actually now they're asked to do in the hospital, and I've seen quite a few dads stripped off and the baby sitting on, and they are doing it. So sometimes maybe it's just that professional coming in and asking them, and then giving them permission in a way to do this.
Yeah, and it's like, if somebody's had a baby, or for me, you love to hold that baby, to cuddle that baby in your arms, and you can feel that oh, this is lovely, I'm feeling really relaxed and calm, and that's the same for dads and siblings. So we don't want to say to the brothers and sisters, well, we'll push you away now, they've got a little toddler. Sometimes they can feel pushed out, can't they? Mum's had a new baby and mum's breastfeeding, and this is how they can get involved as well, so they can do skin to skin with their siblings.
Yeah. And there's ways of doing things. Sometimes the family can take the baby after the feed, and then the baby will probably be settled for a little while with that family member while the mum gets involved in whatever it is that she happens to want to get involved in. We're not saying that mum can't do anything else at all. It's family life, isn't it? Everyone needs to pull together and work together as that family unit, really, to support each other.
All great advice there indeed, and I think it's the whole package, and we are educating our families, I think, better in that now, and getting that message across, and including dads more. Actually, we've included dads quite a bit on the show, and we want to include dads more, especially the skin contact and caring for baby.
I've just very recently had my first dad come on the peer support training, and there was a lot of not a lot, but there was some questions asked by people. Should a dad be doing this? Should you have a dad training to be a breastfeeding peer support worker? Would a mum want a man to give her that support? But maybe not actually looking at the mum's breasts, but there's a whole lot more involved in that. Like I said before, just saying you're doing a great job, and then he's going to go out hopefully and take that message to other dads, and that's how. So there's lots of different ways how we can get that message out there. I'd like to get more dads involved, more grandparents involved, so that they can pass that message on to their grandchildren and their great grandchildren, etc.
Well, as a grandparent myself, I remember my last grandchild. I actually had some skin-to-skin contact when her baby's mum came home from hospital after delivering, and she needed her sleep. And I said, "I'm here," and it was lovely. It was lovely having that little bond for that period of time, and having that initial contact when mum needed and dad, they were up all night, needed some sleep, and I just took over for a little bit of time. So as you say, it's a combination there, isn't it, of everybody working together.
So you were there when you were needed, and that's marvellous. But I just wanted to add on to that, which just reminded me actually, Kathleen, we're talking about the benefits of breastfeeding, and we know lots of mums know the common ones, but and you're talking about the human body and how wonderful it is. And if you think about a mum who's breastfed her children, even when she's getting in later life, into her 60s and 70s, and then brittle bones or osteoporosis starts to come along, having breastfed her children, that can help reduce the risk of her getting that. So it's marvellous, isn't it? So when I do the training, I'll say to people, so why would a grandparent be benefiting from breastfeeding? So it's not just when you're breastfed your baby in them first early days or years. The benefits of this sees you right through your whole life, which I don't think that message is always out there. No.
And that's a big message in itself. So looking at the longitudinal life of mums from doing these acts. So it's not just the immediate effect, which there's a lot of research around breast cancer and things like that. But as you're saying, later on in life, you know, when we need our bones to be strong and things like that, it's great that we've fed and breastfed and earlier on.
Yeah.
Wonderful that we don't think about this. Again, more miracles that are happening, and you know, it's a lot of people that are listening into this, people of faith, and thinking of how they are thankful for these things that they don't have to ask for, but they're given them on a plate, and we forget to say thank you for this, subhanAllah, you know, that we're giving those bounties and to be grateful for what we have.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wonderful. So dad's role is important. So that's something that we're establishing here. Grandparents' roles are really important, and as we link into Breastfeeding Week, we want to get that message across to them as well, that there's a role for them.
Definitely, That mum needs the support from the whole family, really, and that's why we want to get that message out to the extended family. Yeah.
So we mentioned some of the medical benefits of breastfeeding for mum. There's other medical benefits, I believe, for babies. We're looking at obesity nowadays, so there's medical research that supports that.
It's a national issue, but Birmingham is looking particularly bad with childhood obesity, and there's lots of sort of work been going on now about looking into how we can actually not just deal with the issue of obesity when a child's 5+ years or a teenager, but looking at how we can prevent it from the offset. And then the way of preventing it is by really getting the support there to help mums to breastfeed, because breast milk is, as we mentioned before, the qualities in it really benefit the gut and the makeup of the child. You will get a healthier child at the end of it, with a lot of reduced risk to a lot of the medical complications that are affecting a lot of children now that are growing up. We also look at the reduced risk of ear infections, the reduced risks of eczema and asthma and chest infection. It also helps to protect the oral health as well, sort of reduce the risk of dental caries. And it's just the fact that babies regulate their own appetite. A breastfed baby actually takes what they want when they need it. They have a drink when they want, they have their starter and main course when they want, and if they fancy a full 5-course meal, they will have that. But what they're having is a natural, normal, healthy, full of real protective factors that's helping them internally and externally and emotionally every time they have a feed.
It's amazing, isn't it, that the breast milk changes from feed to feed, whether it's daytime, nighttime, whatever that baby needs, or whatever time of day that it happens to be. The breast milk adapts and changes, and it is unique to that baby. So it's amazing, really, how clever the body is to produce just what that baby needs at that particular time.
And that's the flip side to that is if a baby's having formula, is having the same meal every day, every time it has a meal, because the flavours and the tastes and varieties and the nutrients that aren't real nutrients just don't change. It's quite a bland diet, really, and packed with things that actually nobody knows what's in the formula a lot of the time. What you see on the tin isn't actually what you're getting, and it's not sterile. So the thing, the beauty of breast milk is, whatever that mum's eating, in a way, when it's broken down, that baby's getting that taste. So when they go on to their weaning stage, they're actually a step ahead of the game because they're exposed to a varied diet anyway.
I never thought of it like that before, that actually the varied diet and comparing it to a same kind of meal continuously for a period of time, it is amazing. And of course, we although we're promoting breastfeeding and this being Breastfeeding Week, there may be some parents that are listening to this that had to use formula for whatever reason. They may have had a child with physical abnormality, or they themselves with something happened to them physically wise, or been very ill after the baby's birth, maybe very seriously, and they weren't able to even express that they were very ill. So they do have that option there.
Yeah. And I think with again, as we were saying at the beginning, because our work is very much about infant feeding, and we haven't mentioned yet about Baby Friendly. Baby Friendly is an international programme really about setting the standards, making sure that everybody every health professional and peer supporter gets the same training, so that we're supporting women how they should be supported. And unfortunately, with all the cuts that's not happening in some pockets of the UK, but it really helps us to make sure that our messages are consistent. So the support a mum should be getting, regardless of how she feeds, should be the same. If she's formula feeding, she should be showing how to make up a formula safely, making sure she's got equal measures of powder to her water that she's using. She should be showing how to sterilise, so that it's all done safely to make sure that the baby remains healthy. And if she's giving both breast and bottle milk, the information and support should be there to make sure that she's maximising the breast milk as much as possible, so offering more breast than she is formula, whichever works for her. If she's doing a formula feeding safely and getting the support to breastfeed, and that works for her, that's fantastic. That's what it's all about, and that's what we're trying to do, really, to keep women happy.
And that's what you do in the training, and I know that's what you do in the training, because we've had an example of that, some training that Sandra did to our sparklers, and one of our sparklers was helping a mum who had to go back to hospital, and her family at home didn't know how to make up a bottled milk, so that sparkler had to guide them on how to do it, because she learnt on the training. So even though it's promoting breastfeeding, sometimes there is situations, emergencies, that you may have to give
definitely.
formula.
And our role is not to say, every woman should breastfeed and formula is, evil. Like you said, it's that woman's choice. If she chooses not to breastfeed, she still needs that help and support to be showing how to make that formula up correctly, and the right temperature, etc. We're really here to support women with the choices that they're making, and that's often when I ask women why they gave up breastfeeding, it's because they didn't get that support that they needed to continue to breastfeed. So it's not about us saying you have to breastfeed. It's about you having the right information to make the right informed choice, and then supporting you with that choice.
And it's about a real change in society, because we have a saying that we talk about when we train, that breastfeeding shouldn't fall just on the responsibility of the parents. It's not just about the mum, it's not just about dad, it's everybody's responsibility. Really looking far up as a government and beyond, we've got to be able to provide the support for women, give them the information, and also as a society in the UK change our own attitudes and beliefs towards mums that are breastfeeding as well, because what we don't want is our mums that are breastfeeding to feel that they're having to be locked in a corner or to go off to toilets to feed. We need to see more of what's happening in many other countries across the globe, where mums are able to feed in a cafe or in a restaurant and to feel safe doing that, because the baby's doing what's normal. They're having their food, a bit like me going to a restaurant and sitting and having my food, and a bit like a baby that's bottle feeding, sitting, mum's holding him in her arms, or dad giving him his food. We've all got the equal rights and human right to eat where we want to eat.
That's such a valid point. Actually, we were only having a conversation recently with somebody, and she was saying what's wrong with breastfeeding in the toilets, and we were talking about the bacteria and things like that in toilets and things, which she wasn't aware of, that happens in toilets. So it's trying to get that message across to other people that may be not aware of it, that we need proper places to breastfeed in. Society needs to have more of these areas, or even breastfeeding is so natural. I could be breastfeeding here in front of you, and you probably wouldn't even know I was doing it. We do. We have lovely, especially for Muslims, it's so easy with if we wear a scarf to cover up, it can be covered up very easy. But if you don't, some people wear these little covers now, which covers everything and conceal everything. But even if you don't, actually, you need to stare very carefully at a mum if you are seen to see anything of their body, because usually it's all covered anyway with baby and
definitely.
And for that person who said what's wrong with breastfeeding in the toilets, then I'd say, well, would you want to take your meal into the toilet and eat your meal in the toilet? Because that's what the baby's doing. He's having his meal, isn't he?
Feeding is a social activity. We all do it in groups, don't we? We enjoy sitting down with the family and talking and interacting. And these are lessons for the baby as well, to pick up on all that positive messages amongst their family members where everyone sits and they talk and they laugh and they giggle, and it's a happy time. And actually, do we want to deny a baby of sharing in that? It's important that they're part of that family and part of that activity.
It is, and I suppose this leads us on to talking about breastfeeding in public. There's a lot this week, being Breastfeeding Week, on social media about breastfeeding in public, where some people are very supportive of it and think we should be doing it more, like we're saying, it's discreet and it's natural and nobody needs to know what's happening. And then we have other people, even women, saying, no, we shouldn't be doing this, that this is not something that I want to see or I want to watch. What's your opinions on breastfeeding in public?
Okay, I think it's very individual for that family, for the mum and her partner. And I think at the very beginning of the conversation, Karoline talked about confidence in breastfeeding and mum's, natural ability and confidence in her own body to, she doesn't doubt the fact that she's pregnant and her baby's going to be born at the end of it. So she starts doubting about her feeding issues, and then once she's got to, a point where she actually wants to leave the house, she's worrying then about what am I going to do when I go out and where do I feed and who's going to see me. So the confidence issue comes in then. It is about that self-belief and her sort of being reassured that she's not doing anything wrong. She's covered by the Equality Act 2010 to feed wherever she wants to feed. She's doing something as simple as really feeding her child. So it's about her sort of planning her journey, thinking about where she's going to go, thinking about who she's going to be with. And maybe for the first time she goes out with a partner or a sister or a mom, so she's got somebody with her. And being prepared, has she got all her kit that she needs in her bag? Has she got a shawl? Has she got a little blanket she might want to use? Is she sitting where she's comfortable sitting? Is she worried about the people that is around her? Thinking about all those things. You can't plan everything, but I think it's about her knowing that she's safe and feeling safe and feeling reassured that actually what she's doing is a normal thing to do. And if people have an issue with that, like some members of the public do, it's where she can't really take it too much on board because she's not doing anything wrong at all, and her family are there to support her, and if she's on her own, as long as she knows that she's safe, which she is, and she's comfortable and the baby's happy and the baby's having a feed, just run with it, really.
Yeah, that's, what Sharon says, absolutely right. And I think I'd add on to that is also, I think it's about educating other people, actually, that there's nothing wrong with what she's doing, and if we can get that message out there, so it's not the onus is on the mom to, I need to find somewhere that I can breastfeed without getting intimidated. That's great, but then I think we need to take it a step further and actually educate people to say, you know what, there is nothing wrong with what she's doing. If she wants to breastfeed in public, it's not a problem. Like you said, Kathleen, you really can't see anything. You'd have to go right up and stare at that woman's chest to be able to see anything. I'm sure if you were just walking through a city, you wouldn't really notice. But what we can do as well, and what we had in the past, and I don't know whether it still happens, is there used to be little stickers, and you could put them in cafes, and it'll say breastfeeding welcome, so that mum knows that she can go to that cafe or that restaurant, and she can breastfeed there, and she's not going to get told she has to move or go in the toilet. So that's a really good idea. So if you know somewhere that breastfeeding mums are breastfeeding mums should be welcome everywhere, but for her confidence and for her to feel happy, she's, I know that cafe on the high street, they've got one of them stickers in, I can go in there and have a drink, or some places say just come in and breastfeed, you don't even have to buy a drink, and I've heard of places will give mum a glass of water. They're happy for her to come in and do that.
There are quite a few places in the UK are very good with that scheme, like Bristol and Somerset. Birmingham's quite behind with that, and I think what Sandra's saying is right, but then I'm just thinking about our city. We've got a lot of work to do. We used to have that scheme, didn't we, over 10 years ago, but we've got a lot to do to get that back, because a mum shouldn't have to look for a sticker. She should feel that she should be able to sit and feed without having to ask permission to do that. So it really is about confidence and strength and
definitely.
support, definitely.
I think if we work together on that, cafes, it could be a way of promoting their cafe and inviting in more people and showing how friendly they are, family friendly.
Yeah.
That is a good thing for cafes to do this. So maybe it is nice to have that little stick, because word of mouth will pass around then between mums. You know, this is a friendly place, as you're saying, if somebody does come in, they will support me. It's nice. And the wonderful thing about breastfeeding, I remember breastfeeding my first child born in Ireland, and my family lived about 140, 150 miles away from where I was living at that time, and I used to hop in the car with her and we'd stop on the way down and these back roads, and I'd just take her out and feed her and do everything and then put her back in again and then continue the journey on. It was wonderful. No sterilising bottles with me or anything. Everything was
no
just
matter how long the journey took, because you could feed her whenever she needed.
So it is so convenient for parents.
Long plane journeys.
Long plane journeys.
And you know, when the plane's taking off and that, you get that pain in your ears. Like, I've seen many mums pop the baby on the breast, and as they're feeding that on the breast, and you don't get that poor baby crying and screaming because their poor ears are hurting.
Exactly.
So, you know,
and I do think when you're feeding out in public, there's nothing more that draws attention to you than a screaming baby. Actually, popping the baby on the breast will draw a hell of a lot less attention to you than actually your screaming child. So it's mums feeling confident to put their baby to the breast as a way of comforting or feeding their child when they're out in public, and not shying away from what they would naturally do at home, but having that confidence in their parenting choices.
Brilliant. So as in the last couple of minutes of the show now, is there any tips that you would like to pass on, Breastfeeding Week tips for our listeners?
Could we say one each or one or two each? I would say to any parent that's listening now that's struggling is you're not on your own, and what you're doing is a wonderful thing. Don't give up. You take a feed at a time, and don't be afraid to ask for help, because there is help out there. You know, seeking your midwife, your health visitor, go to your children's centre and find out what's available to them. And also have a look at some of the apps that are available, the Baby Buddy app, as Kathleen mentioned. And also there's a national breastfeeding helpline, which has a phone number. And also there's the Association of Breastfeeding Mothers, there's Breastfeeding Network, there's a new link that came out today, actually the 1st of August, which is the Breastfeeding 24/7 support, which you can actually access on Facebook Messenger. And when you sort of type in your query, you'll get a response back. That's a new improved app that's available. But have a look on the Baby Friendly website as well. It's UNICEF Baby Friendly UK, lots of videos and information on that. But most of all, seek somebody that can spend some time with you face to face, because it really does help. It really will help you.
And I suppose following on from that, I would like to say that we've talked a lot about peer support, and if any mums are out there are interested in being trained to become a volunteer peer supporter, I'd love to hear from you. So if you pop along to your local children's centre, tell them that you've heard this on the radio, you can give my name, and we can get some training out there for you guys.
And finally, I'd just like to say, believe in yourself. You can do this, and we are here to help you. And whatever your challenges may be, most of them are easily overcome. They just need a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of information, from a health professional maybe, or a peer supporter who could come out to see you. And just take it day by day. Just take it feed by feed, and we will get you where you want to be. And it's such a rewarding thing to do. You will really enjoy it. But in those early days, just keep asking for help if it feels like it's a mountain to climb. We can get over that and overcome those problems.
Wonderful advice there. Thank you so much for coming into studio. Thank you for giving up your time. It was wonderful having you. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Do tune into us again next week, when we're going to have another topic, inshallah, for you. And do believe in yourself. They are lovely words to end with. Assalamu alaikum.